Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
It's never too early to set expectations and goals for your child's education. The UA College Savings Plan provides opportunities that can help you reach your educational savings goals. Save in Alaska. Study anywhere. There is more information available by calling 1-888, the number 4, and then Alaska. This message sponsored by the UA College Savings Plan.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us here for Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting tonight's show. Up first here, the satellite imagery, the loop here of the far western Pacific, the Aleutians right through here, and you can see the storm system well to the south, and the front, just the back edge of the front right through here. And it has brought some clouds and a little bit of moisture, mostly staying to the south here. The really only effect with this is the gusty east winds that are occurring out there, as high as 40 miles an hour at Atka and to about 30 miles an hour over at Adak. And you see the main cold air with that pushing off to the east there, and the whole system gradually dropping more to the south. Another one coming across the Sea of Japan here, the cold air mass, and the main low up here over the southern Sea of Okhotsk, and the front right through there. And that'll either head up to the north, and the bulk of it will take off to the south there, not be much of an incoming threat, at least right away. You can also see the old low pressure area here back over the western Bering Sea, with the front having pushed northward there and into the northwest part of the state today, and brought some mixtures of precipitation with the gusty winds. Mild southerly flow here, from the Alaska Peninsula all the way up into across the western interior there. And Kivalina seeing rain mixed with snow at times, or freezing rain, and also just snow here with this band occurring at Nome, picked up anywhere from 1 to 3 inches in the last 24 hours there. Visibility is down to 1 to 2 miles this afternoon in snow. But that band really weakens, but it did bring 3/100 of an inch of rain to Talkeetna. Now, this is just the trailing edge of what brought the rain in over areas of south central Alaska last evening, but cleared out behind it. Watching some more moisture down here to the southwest, stream northwestward there. This area all high pressure aloft from the southeast coast, all right up into the interior here. So a lot of sunshine seen today from the North Gulf Coast, all of the Panhandle sunny, although it was a little breezy in areas there like Lynn Canal. And the next system, you see quite a large cloud mass out there. Some of that moisture may come up into the central Aleutians tonight, and the winds will probably stay in that gale force range, minimum gale force range, at least tonight, and a little breezy through tomorrow. Well, for tonight, look for some rain mixed with snow to possibly reach portions of the Alaska Peninsula there, and then extend back across Dutch Harbor and into the central Aleutians. More of a scattered, isolated rain and snow shower condition farther out to the west. This moisture that brought the rain and gusty winds, again as high as 30 to 40 miles an hour from the south here, and the rain into Bethel, although it was kind of a cold rain. I think they reached 33 or 34 degrees, and then 31 at last hour, but all the moisture has ended in this area. But there will be some lingering snow showers, mostly over the Kilbrook Mountainous areas here, northeast Bristol Bay, and on up into the mid and lower valleys there of the Yukon River. Should taper off and eventually end, the snow anyway, there along the southern Seward Peninsula coastline, Golovin over to Nome, and kind of persist up here from, say, north of Kotzebue, up along the upslope areas there, the western mountains, and then not too bad on the Arctic coast. Winds will stay light, just variably cloudy to becoming clear on the east side there, to mostly cloudy, but still light winds even on the west side there. Should be VFR up there most of the night. Good VFR here all through the interior with light winds, mostly clear skies. dry and windy in areas here of the Panhandle. Stronger gusts occurring as high as 35 miles an hour, mostly over areas of the inside waters here. And of course, sustained winds, gale force winds coming through Lynn Canal with Eldred Rock seeing gusts of 40-45 miles an hour. Other areas not seeing much wind at all, just sunshine today, but that drier, colder air mass keeping all the clouds out here off the coast. There will be some moisture. That band of moisture will keep it cloudy. The leftover moisture as it weakens over Kodiak Island. A chance of some light rain or sprinkles out here that may begin to affect the area of the peninsula on Saturday, tomorrow. Just that leftover moisture from the what was left of that frontal boundary sliding northeastward that's currently bringing the clouds up into south central Alaska. Won't see much in the way of any moisture with that, just the clouds tonight, and then tomorrow that'll just dissipate back out. And the clouds will be restricted right over Prince William Sound and the North Gulf Coast with some areas of fog. Looks the prospects for any sun for Kodiak Island are not good at all tomorrow, but should be a dry day for the most part, although maybe a little drizzle or brief light rain might show up on the southern or southeast coast here. More likely though along the Alaska Peninsula. On the Pacific side, looks pretty good on the other side there in that east to generally easterly flow here. So sunny skies for Bristol Bay. Variable clouds but dry over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta areas. There's some mid clouds possible up toward McGrath and Nikolai. And then this front right through here really doesn't have much of a eastward push to it, but could bring the snow but chances back into the Seward Peninsula tomorrow afternoon, and also up over the northwest part of the state, while the eastern Arctic coast, North Slope areas, actually all the way down into the Copper River Basin, will be mostly sunny again tomorrow with light winds, and still windy here over the Panhandle. Actually, an upper level low trying to back westward here, associated with a very cold air mass over western Canada and southwest Canada. As you get better upper support aloft, you may see an increase in these winds over the southern areas there tomorrow. And then that'll continue and probably see an increase in the winds over the northern areas on Sunday. But for tomorrow, about like today, except maybe a little bit more windier, especially on the wind gusts there over the southern southeast coast. Otherwise, some scattered rain and snow showers possible at times here for the eastern Aleutians. And most of this moisture at the front now south of the Aleutian chain. So lots of clouds out in the Bering Sea with breezy conditions, but not too bad. Easterlies, east-northeasterlies, 10 to 20 miles an hour. And then picking back up a little bit, could see gusts of 25 miles an hour here ahead of this front along the western coast of Alaska, or the northwest coast, or the western part of the Arctic coast. And then on Sunday, that front weakens, brings a swath of snow eastward across the coastline there. And that could kick the winds up at Kaktovik to possibly as high as 30 miles an hour in gusts, or 35 miles an hour. And then some leftover moisture in between for kind of a cloudy, light snow type of day with some marginal VFR there across much of the North Slope, and then lower conditions as another front drops in and hangs up along the western coastline. That could spread some moisture southward to the Bering Strait areas. Otherwise, Sunday, under upper high pressure, the southern part of the state and just about all of the eastern areas there, as well as the Panhandle, will be sunny, dry with light winds. Very weak low here. Right over Seward just about, so that'll tend to circulate the clouds on up into Prince William Sound, but it looks dry over all of the area there, just kind of cloudy right along the coastline there. Probably won't see much in the way of any clouds in Valdez, while Portage probably will be cloudy the entire day. And again, the stronger winds now, probably seeing storm force gusts at least there for Lincoln Island, Glacier Bay down into Stevens Passage. And windy all the way down to the south, except now west of Prince of Wales Island, winds dropping off a little bit there. Also, as that upper low pulls back to the west, moisture will increase here. Looks like any snow shower activity, at least at this point in time, will stay over Dixon Entrance and southward, but something to watch to see how that develops for the possibilities of any snow showing up there over the southern Panhandle. Very weak front now, the remnants of that front parallel to the wind flow, so really not moving much, just losing its support. Could bring a little bit of light rain, maybe some marginal VFR to the Alaska Peninsula, right on into the central Aleutians. Otherwise, no change for the Bering Sea. For temperatures this afternoon, 37 in Juneau with A range from upper 30s to upper 40s over the Panhandle. Warmest down over the southern areas at 40 degrees at Cordova today, as well as Kenai, 41 at Homer, Anchorage at 38. Copper River Basin mostly in the 20s, lower 20s there at Gulkana. And for the Tanana Valley, mid-20s to lower 30s, with Fairbanks rising to freezing at 4 o'clock this afternoon. But Fort Yukon, only 9 degrees by comparison. About the same in Arctic Village, a little milder there. Windier also at Anatuvik. And up along the Arctic coast, temperatures range from 0 to 15 above. Atasuk, one of the warmer spots, at 16, and then much milder back here over the northwest with Deering up to 36, 32 at Kivalina, 29 at Kotzebue, 30 degrees at Point Hope, 31 in snow in Nome, and 43, that was at Aniak here over the southwest interior. Otherwise, near freezing here, dropping back to 28 out toward Makoriak. South central Alaska mostly in the lower 40s. The Pribilofs in the mid 30s, upper 30s, but only freezing out at Chimney in the colder air out that way. 40 degrees at Unalaska, lower 40s here across the peninsula right up to Kodiak Island. Highs tomorrow, or for lows tonight, lower 30s here for the peninsula, Kodiak, upper 20s, Bristol Bay, a little clearer skies here, so temperatures a little cooler back into the lower 20s. And teens and 20s up over the west central part of the state, and a little below zero here along the Arctic coast, and anywhere from 0 to 25 below over the eastern interior, with a 0-degree isotherm cutting right through about the central Tanana Valley back up toward Bettles. Teens and 20s here over the Panhandle. Some areas a little milder, closer to 30 degrees. For highs tomorrow, should reach just about the plus side of 0 everywhere except for the dark area up here in the northeast. But 20s over the northwest interior, 30s again, southwest part of the state to near 40 for Bristol Bay and the peninsula all the way out to Alaska, 40 degrees of forecast high for Kodiak, and upper 20s to mid 30s for the Panhandle and near 40 for the Aleutians. Flying weather looks pretty good over the eastern and central interior, even the Arctic coast up here from Barrow eastward. It should be VFR, but that moisture of those fronts coming down from the northwest probably will spread some IFR into the northwest capes here, possibly down the coastline to Kivalina, and then cutting back to the north west of Wainwright, the way it looks at this point in time, just marginal conditions there. And then some leftover clouds could make for some marginal VFR here, mostly along the mountains here, the Kuskokwim Mountains down into the Kilbrook. That's just a possibility. Maybe VFR right out to the coastline and beyond, just some patchy marginal VFR out here over the Bering Sea. And then that frontal boundary, what's left of it, really nothing left of it, but a lot of low-level moisture here, probably bringing some marginal VFR to western Kodiak Island, back up toward Kamishak Bay, and then right up the coastline there into southwest Bristol Bay. But most of this hopefully will remain off the coast and even south of Cordova. Then that frontal system, marginal VFR, say from Unalaska or just to the west, Nikolsky for sure, with some IFR possible out over Adak and Atka to about Kiski, then improving farther out to the west. Passes all look good tomorrow. Anatuvik, VFR in either approach, Adigan, same forecast. VFR, Lake Clark and Merrill, either approach, rainy, wide open VFR conditions. Windy VFR, both tomorrow and Sunday. Looks like right through the weekend, the entire Alaska range will be VFR for all these passes. Mentasta, same forecast. Tanita looking really good. Portage, VFR on both sides. Chilkoot and White, VFR both tomorrow, Sunday, and possibly beyond. And for the freezing levels here with the upper high pressure and the subsiding air mass, that puts that freezing level 2,000 to 4,000 feet here up over the northeast part of the state, and then the other 2,000 foot line right up into southern Alaska, a little milder down to the south there, but at the surface along the outer coastline of the Panhandle, Bristol Bay, and milder conditions, be right around 30 there, maybe for the Pribilofs for tomorrow morning. And no significant icing expected anywhere in the state tomorrow. So we'll move on to the winds aloft chart. You can see this big area of upper high pressure holding right over the interior tomorrow. The jet arcing all the way up into the Arctic and then down. And you can see it coming very close to the southeast coast here. So that's going to tend to increase those winds, especially over the southern areas. And then this low here will actually pull back to the west tomorrow night and Sunday. And that'll increase the upper level wind flow here over all of the Panhandle. So leading to probably stronger surface winds. Otherwise, the main jet well to the south here, and actually this upper low will kind of cut the top of this high off tomorrow, and for Sunday we'll still be in a high pressure type of pattern here over the central and southern part of the state, while a little more cyclonic flow there for increasing chances of moisture, as I pointed out in the surface maps, mostly from the Berks Range on northward. 9,000 foot winds, pretty light and variable under high pressure through the interior. Southwest, again up to 25 knots there ahead of that front, the first front there for the western Arctic coast, maybe over to about Barrow. But light winds over the northern Bering Sea. On the south side of that ridge, they turn easterly or will stay easterly. 30 knots, possibly near or south of the Pribilofs, to 50 knots over the eastern Aleutians. 25 knot winds out of the east-northeast for Kodiak. Lighter, though, at 9,000 feet over the Panhandle. At 3,000 feet, much the same pattern here with the strongest winds over the southern Bering Sea and the west central, or the central and eastern Aleutians, turning southwest there back over the northwest. And again, this trough gradually shifting eastward tomorrow night and in over the north slope on Sunday. No change here for tomorrow or Sunday over central and southern Alaska. And for turbulence, there we go. Occasional moderate chop, mechanical turbulence from the Wrangell Mountains all the way down to Dixon Entrance. Pretty smooth here over the interior. Moderate chop possible on the western Arctic coast, and more likely and a little more widespread here from the Alaska Peninsula out to the central Aleutians. And after hangar flying, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Good evening. My name is Mary O'Connor, and I'm filling in for Harry Keeling. I am the Secretary of the Board of Directors for the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation. And in my day job, I manage the Aviation Safety Program for the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. And I'm also a commissioned officer in the Public Health Service, hence the uniform. This evening, we are honored to have on our show Giselle Moeller, who is the Executive Director for the Regions and Center Operations with the Federal Aviation Administration. Welcome, Giselle. Giselle is an aircraft owner and a pilot, and she's been working on the Next Generation Air Transportation System, or NextGen. Thank you for being here, Giselle.
Thanks, Mary. I appreciate being here, and would like to have an opportunity to talk about NextGen.
Would you like to give us a little bit of a history of the program and tell us what the program is about?
Well, the program is about modernizing the air transportation system. And part of that, of course, is always safety, because safety comes first in aviation. And we're trying to produce new procedures, use new avionics, new technology, new automation to try and move us into the 21st or 22nd or 23rd century, whatever is ahead, because it takes us a long time to get there in this modernization program. It's also about the environment. It's very important for us to be conscious of our environmental footprint. And if we can do things that burn less fuel, it would just be the right thing to do.
And can you tell us how that would help us in Alaska? That sounds very helpful for the flying that's done in the lower 48. But what about here in Alaska?
Well, there are a number of capstone programs that started many years ago, and I congratulate Alaska for being the test bed for all those programs. The first one is ADSB, Automatic Dependent Broadcasts, which is for surveillance. And but it's more than surveillance, because it gives you in the cockpit what some of the information for the traffic that's around your airplane, and also weather information that you ordinarily would not have. It also, for the surveillance part, is that it replaces a radar for those areas that have radar. But in Alaska, most areas don't have radar. So it is providing an additional safety factor that when you're flying somewhere and say something goes wrong, we know where you are, we can find you. It's just very important. There's also another program called WAS, and it's a wide area augmentation system. That system has also been around, was part of Capstone, but now with NextGen we introduced a vertical guidance part. And the vertical guidance allows you to get into airports when the weather is marginal or really deteriorates. I think you can go down to 200 feet with some WAAS LPV approaches. Most important, though, is to use that satellite-based navigation, and you'd use that for your GPS approaches and also for the RNAV, RNP routes. They're, I guess we call them tango routes that most of the pilots use around here. You put all that together, you've got a lot of efficiencies and a lot of fuel-saving efforts. Another one is the optimized profile descents, also called continuous descent or tailored arrivals. And if you're in an airplane, even as a passenger, it is so much easier and quieter to come down to a landing from when you're getting ready to approach an airport, and to have this continuous descent where the plane is burning less fuel, so it's advantageous to the airlines or the pilot who owning the aircraft. And it is very beneficial to the environment because we're burning less fuel. And it's very beneficial to the passenger who's still asleep because you're not being woken up by these step-down approaches where the power keeps being moved up.
And we're using this technology in Alaska now?
We are actually using OPDs coming into the major airports, into Anchorage and into Fairbanks. You're using ADS-B, especially in the Bethel area, where there's a lot of traffic. The folks who have the ADS-B technology in the cockpit can see the traffic that's there. And the WAAS LPV, there are a number of WAAS LPV approaches to various runways in Alaska. And you know, you're talking about a state where I think 82% of the communities don't have roads that access them, so aviation is just so important, and you need to be able to get in even when the weather gets bad.
Giselle, those sound like great improvements to aviation safety for Alaskans. We look forward to hearing more about this program when we come back next time. So thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for tuning in and let you know that this program is sponsored by the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation. If you enjoy this program, you might consider being a member, and our applications are available on our website. If you're interested in aviation safety, we do have a float plane seminar that focuses on float plane safety, and that's going to be held on April 26th. So please join us. Thank you very much, and until next time, fly safely.
Well, gale force northerlies or north-northeasterlies here up over the northern inside waters, small crafts into the southern areas, and then easterlies 20 knots or east-northeast 20 knots. Still a big variation in these winds here. Some areas will see a lot less like today. Other areas will see actual increase here. Go 30 knots here on the south coast, only 10 knots up to the north. And then for Sunday, might as well go with a northeast 50 knots here for the northern inside waters. Freezing spray, higher gusts. Gales for the central areas, small crafts down to the south, but dropping back down to 20 knots here for the south coast, about 30 knots here with a little more upper support to these winds, 30 knots, higher gusts out of all these bays, but dropping back significantly up to the north. And for North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, Cook Inlet, all light variable winds in store for tomorrow, 10 knots or less. Light easterlies at about 15 here for the western Gulf Coast. Northeast for Kamishak Bay, but picking up to 25 knots as you slide down Shelikof Strait, and easterlies at about 25 for Kodiak Island. And for Sunday, those winds come down under small craft advisories, just 15 knots there, maybe hanging around 20 down to the extreme south, but much lighter winds. No warnings or advisories out for any of these marine zones except light wind advisories, light variable winds for the entire North Gulf Coast and Prince William Sound. And for the Alaska Peninsula areas, windier out there, 30 knots on the Bering Sea side, 40 knots here for the, say, Sandpoint to False Pass or Cape Sarachev actually, and then 30 knots back up towards Sitkinak, with these winds up to the northeast there will be dropping off throughout the day. And looking at Sunday, light winds, Bristol Bay northeast at about 15. Small craft advisories, so keeping a little brisker here, but lower than what you'll see tomorrow on the Pacific side of the peninsula. Out in the Aleutians, lightest winds out here in the west, strongest winds, in some cases gale force winds from the central Aleutians back up and just south of the eastern or the Unalaska area. And then more easterly and lighter winds with small craft advisories holding on. The gales are gone now, but northeasterlies 20 to 25 knots, diminishing into the central Aleutians. Then northwest coming back up to 20 knots there for Shemya. And for the Bering Sea, light variable winds for St. Lawrence Island tomorrow, but northeasterlies here 20 to 25 knots up to 30 knots for the Pribilofs. And the outlook for Sunday, small craft advisories everywhere except where the ice is, and that's a brisk wind advisory, 25 to 30 knots. And farther up to the north, light variable winds on the eastern Arctic coast tomorrow. Really nice day up there. Southwest 15, maybe up to 20 knots, 20 to 25 knots here on the west side with that front edging its way eastward, but light westerlies for the Chukchi Sea. Those will be northerly at about 20 on Sunday. A little more gradient here, 25 knots for Cape Lisburne, Point Hope. Northwest 15, and then as that front edges or kicks off to the east there, look for 20 to maybe 25 knots with higher gusts here, mostly over toward those windier areas, Kaktovik on to Demarcation Point. And for tonight, again, this moisture sliding northward here is going to leave behind a few scattered snow showers over the southwest interior, but generally mostly cloudy, clear over the central and eastern areas there with quite windy conditions in the channeled areas of the southeast coast. All clear though, and just a chance of some rain and snow here along the Aleutians of the Alaska Peninsula. That sort of fades away tomorrow as that bulk of that moisture just pulls back to the south a little bit there. So easterly winds 15 to 25 miles an hour. The southern Bering Sea lighter up to the north here. And then possible snow chances and a little breezier there on the western Arctic coast. The chance of snow coming back into the Seward Peninsula. That'll be light snow, not much accumulation at all. Sunshine here over the eastern interior, all the way down into Cook Inlet and Bristol Bay. No change for the Panhandle except a little windier in some areas, then notably windy on Sunday through northern areas there, and dry in the south. Have a great weekend.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
You can tell a lot about a company by where it invests. At ConocoPhillips, we're investing in Arctic science and engineering at the University of Alaska Anchorage. And we're supporting today's students and tomorrow's engineers at UAF. In fact, today, more than 100 of our employees are University of Alaska graduates, and our future is in their hands. We happen to think that's a pretty good investment. ConocoPhillips, Alaska's oil and gas company.